stop. If you've been following along or even played the beta for Dune Awakening, you'll find nothing new in this video. I want to be transparent up front. What we will be discussing today are all of the character classes as well as the skills for Dune. For those that haven't been following along, you have 4 classes to choose from in Dune Awakening at character creation launching into early access this week. In this video today, I don't want to color how you play your game by talking about the absolute best, min, max, ultimate must play this way skills. Instead, we'll be talking about all of the 5 character classes on a high level to give you a good understanding for which one you want to play when the game goes live. Just in case you're confused, there are 5 classes, but only 4 of them you can start with. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. So with that being said, let me give you the down and dirty. There's 5 classes with 3 specializations. You get a total of 200 points that you can allocate across not just your starting class, but all 5. So while the initial choice is quote unquote permanent, there's nothing that stops you from respecing fully into another class. If you were to take every single point in one class, it's roughly 90 to 95 points. So you can easily invest fully in one class, then fully in another, or spread those remaining points around. I can't encourage you enough to play what you want, as any information on this game has already been confirmed to have changes coming during early access and probably again at launch. The only meta is the meta that you enjoy, not what the internet says. Try out a class or 2 and either reroll or respec once you've found something that clicks. There's no need to rush. Enjoy the ride. Now, as far as each class goes, the Bene Gesserit, the hardest initial class to learn, uses the voice and focuses on close combat, crowd control, as well as a lot of health bonuses, making the latter specialization of particular worth even if you don't want to use the voice. Mentat is a ranged sniper class that has the ability to summon a turret and deploy a number of mines, with a secondary focus on poison and damage over time effects. The Planetologist, the only non-starting class, focuses heavily on the power management and base building portion of the game, as well as resource yield, helping with power consumption as well. Additionally, they have a specialization that aids with scanning and traversal, highly valuable for all classes, and lastly, a big focus on buffing all vehicles. Swordmaster is probably the easiest class to approach with its straightforward gameplay style. You do a ton of melee damage, while also having a lot of built-in damage mitigation, hydration boosts, and stamina recharge. Swordmaster is just a stamina machine, truly. Trooper is another equally approachable class that gets bonuses for lots of different range weapons, mines, grenades, and utilizes a suspensor to be able to shoot while flying in the air, not to mention the amazing grappling hook. But that's too long didn't watch this entire video, and if that's all you wanted to know, then please feel free to just shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters of the timeline in the description. If you are heading out and found the information in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those helps me out in a huge way. Lastly, you can find a link to my Twitch in the pinned comment and description, where we will be doing a Dune Awakening giveaway at launch. But let's get started on picking the best class for you in Dune Awakening. The way we're going to do this video here is I'm going to be using the builder here at openworld.gg. And what we're going to be doing with this is I'm just going to talk about and show off some of these skills. But first, before we even get into that, let's have a base understanding of your 3 types of skills. You have abilities, which are these diamonds. You have techniques, which are these. Sorry. There we go. You have techniques, which are these. Right there. I was like, where are they? Over here. And then you've got passives. So, which are these circles. Passives are passives as we know them in any other game. They're passively going to give you some sort of bonus to your character. These, your techniques, they're going to give you some sort of bonus to an existing ability, or some sort of, I don't want to quite call it a passive, but it basically will add a layer of additional benefits. So let me just give you a real quick example here. This technique, rapid register, at the very bottom of the screen. I'm going to zoom in if you're on mobile. Rapid register here. This technique allows you to focus on registering opponents more quickly in order to use the voice faster. If you don't understand what that means, don't worry about it. My point here is you will slot your abilities into this section and your techniques into this section. There's no slotting for passives. Passives, you can have as many as you want active. So a technique is kind of like a more powerful passive that will usually apply to an ability. There are some cases where that's not the case, but that is the kind of breakdown for every single character. They're all going to share this ability, technique, and passive format. So now we understand this going forward. And one last thing too, before we get started, you'll probably see this information kicking around the internet right now that says if you choose any of these 4 classes, then you get some sort of skill bonus. That skill bonus is only present if you choose that class. This is old information. It's from a previous build. It is not relevant in the actual launch candidate for the build. I'm sorry, for the game. So don't worry about choosing any one of these classes and going, well, I started with a trooper. Cool, I got the damage resistance, but I really wanted the scanning range of the Mentat, or the melee damage of the Swordmaster, or the influence range of the Bene Gesserit. That is no longer in the game. So please choose classes purely based off of how you want, and don't feel like you're locked into anything. Now, looking back at the Bene Gesserit, we've got our 3 specializations: the weirding way, the voice, and body control. Bene Gesserit is going to focus on manipulating the game world through the voice. A lot of other character classes are going to manipulate the game world through practical means, using the grappling hook for the trooper, or using plenty of other methodologies from plenty of other classes. This one is, again, all about tricking other things through usage of the voice. So with Weirding Way, we get a cool sprint here, the Bindu Sprint. Now, this has been confirmed to be getting a nerf when the game goes live, because apparently it was just really effective at getting you places in a way that the developers hadn't intended. But this is a really cool little sprint here. And the more points you invest, obviously, you can see it costs 1 SP, and things are on a pretty linear scale. It's like 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's maxed out. And then that is going to open up our branches. This works at pretty much any other talent tree in any other RPG, so I won't get too into the weeds on that. But pretty much all of these are going to have the 3 points you can invest into them. Blade damage here is going to give us additional damage on blade. We have a short blade bonus here as well. And then we're going to also get manipulate instability. So this is going to give us a bonus damage to anything that is unstable, or as the game calls it, instability. And this means that anyone that is stunned, staggered, knocked back, you can get basically more damage on any of those targets, which you can do through the voice and other means. You also get 2 really cool abilities here. The Pranabindu strikes, which is just a bunch of rapid fire strikes, basically a big, what's it called? Alpha strike. Now this does also temporarily stagger, which would then give you this bonus. So you can see how these 2 will work hand in hand together. You also get weirding step, which is a way to just appear behind someone. You would typically think of this as a blink capability, right? Now, every single class will have their 3 specializations, as I've said, and then they've got this like capstone thing at the top, right? You can see it's there. You can see it's there. And it just depends. Sometimes it's a passive, sometimes it's an ability. It's just all going to be dependent upon whatever it is. Now, some of them will say these first two words: requires prescience, when enough spice permeates your bloodstream. So basically, every class will have some sort of, if not multiple, prescience abilities. And prescience is given to your character whenever they consume enough spice melange to get them into this state. So if you see this, you need to have access to it either through production in your base, discovering it in the game world, whatever the situation is. So this is a dodge that after a successful parry, dart and blade attacks pass through you. If you're not familiar with the game world, blade attacks are all melee attacks by and large, if it's going to be any kind of blade, and dart's going to be the majority of ranged weapons. So just know how that's how that works, which is a really cool capability. So Weirding Way is going to be more about the melee of the character and manipulating things to kind of quickly do, I guess you would look at this as more of like a rogue type ability, right? To appear behind someone and do some damage, or stagger them and do some damage. That's all in the Weirding Way. For the voice, it's going to give us this ability, Compel. You use the voice to force a target to your position from afar. Voice abilities require a short period for you to register your opponent before they can be used. Compel is what you start with, I believe, and as a Bene Gesserit. And this is your kind of your bread and butter voice ability. And register is something that we'll be able to manipulate with techniques, which we'll talk about in a second here. Then we get voice cooldowns for our abilities. We get ignore. So basically this gives you essentially invisibility, but you have to register them first, which you can then make better with this rapid register. So voice channel time is 30%. The voice only works on targets who have been registered. This technique allows you to focus on registering the opponents more quickly in order to use the voice faster. This gets you more voice usage in a shorter amount of time. Then lastly, stop, which basically you just lock someone in place. Voice abilities require short, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know. Use the voice to stop your enemy from performing any actions for a brief period. Now, I don't know what the ramifications or how the use case of all of these are in PvP. So just keep that in mind. I just am looking at this from a PvE scope because it's probably the only thing I really know right now. Next up too, we have Screech, which is our, again, requires prescience. When you have enough, causing those around you to register active, God, my brain went all over the place. Your voice becomes more powerful, causing those around your registered target to stagger under the force of your commands. So you can see staggering is a very big portion of the Bene Gesserit, and you can get a lot of big damage bonus, so 20% damage bonus through manipulate instability. You don't even need to go through all this. You could just get the stagger bonus here and then use the knockback or the stun from other classes. So just kind of keep this in mind. Now, body control is our last one to take a look at here, and I think it's the one that's going to apply to a lot of classes, because I think everyone's going to want to jump into this in some way, shape, or form. You get health regen on this. We're going to get healing regen rate and limit. Sunstroke, which is a big portion of the game. So sun tolerance helps out with sun stroke rate, because we also are going to deal with hydration. Both of those things are going to be playing hand in hand. Your hydration comes down, you have a higher sunstroke happens easier. So this helps to reduce that overall. Another big one here is poison tolerance. Whenever you are poisoned, it takes longer to reach damaging levels. And then there's one that allows you to metabolize poisons here. So you have developed your internal systems to the extent that any poison you take can quickly be catalyzed and removed from the system. Furthermore, attempts to poison you will not succeed, provided that you have enough stamina to fuel the process. So this is stamina driven. Techniques only take effect when equipped. Obviously, we know that. But using these two in conjunction, I think, is going to be pretty cool, because it sounds like we're going to see a lot of Mentat players in the game, and Mentats use a lot of poison abilities. We have this one over here for healing effectiveness, max health increase, reduce poise damage. Poise is your ability basically to be staggered, knocked down, stuff like that. If you've played Conan Exiles, you know that a lot of games use poise, so you'll probably know that terminology. And our last thing here is Litany Against Fear. This is basically like an AoE buff here. You and your allies will have boosted damage mitigation and stagger resistance for the duration. So this is cool. Armor multiplier 2 and reduce poise damage by 0.35. Scaling all the way to armor multiplier 3, reduce poise damage by 0.55. So that's our Bene Gesserit, right? You're going to focus on a lot of abilities that stagger, that manipulate enemies, but also plenty of stuff that gives you lots of health benefits that you can sprinkle into other classes. It's a stealth archer, but in Dune. No, not really, but kind of. So with the Mentat, we do get a focus on disruptors and pistol damage. I said disruptors, I meant rifles. Disruptors are the trooper. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Shut the video down. No, we're going to focus on using ranged weapons. We're going to focus on headshots. We're going to focus on poison damage, and we're going to have a turret that's going to have a lot of fun with us. So let's look at mental calculus here. Starting us off, the starting ability is the Sentinel. You deploy a suspensor buoyed dart projector that uses motion detection to cover a field of fire. Trigger a second time to activate. Abilities, yeah, we know that. So this little guy's going to, suspensor buoyed means it's going to float. Suspensor means it's going to be just floating above you. It's not going to be anchored to the ground. So you've got this little guy, it's your Sentinel, it's going to be shooting stuff for you. We also get the ability to increase our range damage. We're going to get this reduced durability loss here. You spot the flaws in any garment and see where it's most likely to tear first. This allows you to reinforce it, preventing wear and tear. Your garments maintain their durability for longer. There's an additional one to this right here. Now, every time you repair a garment, you reduce the max durability damage the repair would cause. So while this is a ranged fire class, you can still see that there is a crafting application to this class as well, right? Now, we talked about the range damage here from range damage. Inventive name. We also have marksman. So the trooper has the opposite of this, but the way that this works for the Mentat is you do more headshot damage, you reduce your body damage. So anything that's critical mass is not going to be as effective as the pure headshot damage. So taking a look at this level 3, we get 30% headshot damage with a minus 15% of body damage. We're then going to get a bonus here to pistols at a max of 20%, and a bonus to rifles, specifically the Karpov 38 of the Jabal Spit Dart. Those are just an example of 2. It's going to give you a 20% damage to the rifle. Then last, we have exploit weakness. So when you damage an unshielded enemy with a ranged weapon, the hit location becomes a weak point, which you can target to increase the damage of subsequent attacks. So people would use this in conjunction with the Bene Gesserit to really amp up a lot of damage onto characters. So this is an example of, hey, I'm using the range damage benefit I would have gotten here from the Mentat, then leaning into a lot of the weak point damage and whatnot the instability stuff of the Bene Gesserit. So that's an example of how you can mix two classes together. But this gives you a 50% ranged damage bonus on those weak points. Then we have our requires prescience shield overcharge here. Any ranged attack on a shield will reveal a vulnerability in the Holtzman shield. Continual attacks against this vulnerability will overcharge the enemy shield, causing it to drain their power pack more quickly. And power charge is a big portion of this game, and you'll probably be using this a lot more in PvP, but it's going to be probably great in PvE as well to break the shields of a pretty hard to break enemy. So that is our mental calculus. Into assassination, we have there we go, poison capsule. So a hidden dart dispenser that fires off a specially prepared capsule filled with poisonous spores. On impact, a cloud of poison spores appear, building poison on all who remain within. So this works against the enemies, and this is going to change a little bit. We'll talk about that in a sec. But then we also get headshot damage. So increasing that headshot damage by 20% here on this passive, adding into this. So headshot damage between these two would do 50% more between the marksman technique and this is an example of a technique that doesn't necessarily increase any one ability. It just is a powerful passive, I guess you could say, right? So that's what I meant earlier about how techniques don't always complement an ability, but oftentimes they do, and sometimes they do not. Poison mine, you can place a remotely triggered mine that once triggered releases a cloud of poison. So again, stacking poison on all who stand within. You can use these two abilities to stack more poison between the capsule and the mine. Now, the other poison ability is Poison Tooth. Installed by Sook Doctor, you can activate this Poison Tooth when down in combat. So basically, when you get yourself downed, you get like a martyrdom grenade, but this is a poison grenade instead. The downside, of course, is that it damages you as well. So this would pretty much ensure that you'd want to use this in some sort of group play or as like some sort of suicide route, doing some sort of PvP where, okay, they've gotten me down, but maybe I can still get them in the end, whatever it is. I don't know what the ramifications are in PvP and how that works out. We have this one over here for Stunner. On impact, this dart stuns the enemy, locking their muscles and rendering them unable to move or attack. This is, again, another way how you can leverage the stun benefits of the Bene Gesserit. I'm trying to draw these comparisons so you don't think of these classes in a single vacuum or in an elevator. I want you to think of them as they can bleed together with a lot of their abilities. And then lastly, we have Hunter Seeker. Now, you'll see in this does not say requires prescience. I think this is actually our first ability that doesn't require prescience. So you've been trained in the use of the Hunter Seeker, a specialized assassination device used to kill enemies without causing alarm. If you've seen the movie, this was in the very first movie. You pilot a thin sliver of metal that, when it strikes, burrows inside the arteries of an enemy and causes them incredible pain and often instant death. You are vulnerable when piloting the device. We've seen this in a lot of the gameplay videos, but basically you just send this thing in a straight line and it does, as you see, 1,200 damage, just a ton of damage. So that is your assassination tree here. You can see it has a lot of really fun use cases. Lastly, we have the tactician one. So you deploy a shield wall, which you can use, which is really cool. It will also slow enemies who attempt to pass through it, giving you time to take them down. So you deploy a half-height Holtzman shield that provides cover during combat for you and your allies, and it slows things down when they pass through it. Is what I meant to say, but I just can't use my words anymore. I've forgotten how to talk. And what you'll notice too is almost this entire section over here is abilities with only one technique. You use a miniature Solido projector, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, to project a near perfect image of yourself onto the battlefield. So this will give you basically a decoy that you can use for people to focus on that decoy so that you can either hopefully get away, whatever the situation is. A lot of people have talked about this too, how this is going to work in PvP if it's a very obvious decoy or whatever the situation is. Triggering it again will force the projection to move forward, pulling enemies into attacking, which is a really cool portion, right? It doesn't just stay stationary. You can actually have it move. The gravity mine, so you have two different gravity mines. This one will slow enemies or decrease the speed of projectiles. This one lifts enemies or prevents fall damage during traversal. So so you could use these things in a lot of really cool ways, right? Like throw one below you if you're falling off a cliff, and this is going to slow your descent. So a lot of really cool ways that you could use these things to manipulate how the game world's going to basically interact with combat. So gravity mine down or anti-gravity up, whatever the situation calls for. Then lastly, we have the source of power. You place out a powerful generator that continuously regenerates power for nearby allies. Though the device uses a form of nuclear fission, it is small enough to be safe, provided that it is given adequate time to cool between uses. So this could be used to power back up any number of things that are going to be draining power. So for example, this has a power drain. So that's going to go against your shield capacity, stuff like that. Using this tactician, using source of power, will have a way to recover that power mobily in the field or just without having to use certain circumstances. But the Mentat, I think, is going to be a very popular one. This gives us kind of an entryway into somewhat of a pet class, and it is a ranged sniping powerhouse, as you can see, but it gives you a lot of ways to manipulate the game world using the mines and all the poison mechanics. So if you're into those types of things, you're going to definitely enjoy the Mentat. Now, the only one on this list that is not a starting class is the Planetologist. You will unlock this mentor, as it is said, throughout gameplay. But the Planetologist, I think, is going to be one that everyone's going to want to leverage in some way, shape, or form. Because like I said before, you can put all points into every single one of these trees and still have points left over for a whole other class. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of just like pure builds. I think we're going to see people jumping around. I hope to see that. I hope people kind of have fun with this. But the Planetologist is going to give you capabilities that every single class is going to want to use. Because a lot of this is going to be based off traversal and harvesting, as well as lots of vehicle gameplay. So Scientist is our first one. This is going to help out with our cutter ray, which is going to help out with resource yield. So we're all going to want to use this. We have power regeneration, which we're all going to want to use. We already just talked a little bit ago about how abilities drain power, our shields drain power. So much stuff drains power. We're going to want that. Do Reaper yield. Careful manipulation of the Holtzman field on the Dew Reaper allows you to increase the water yield. So we want this as well. We have bonus yield for mining with the cutter ray. This is going to help out with more power for your power pack. We have compactor yield, improves the efficiency of its resource yields. So basically you can see how all these, it's probably going to come down to what things do I want to do in the game? Do I want to really do a lot more of the resource production? That's Scientist. Do I want to worry more about traversing stuff like the deep desert and other portions of the game? That's the Explorer. Do I want to worry more about the vehicles, riding all the cars, flying all the ornithopters, all that? That's the mechanic section. So I think that's the cool thing about Planetologist. It's going to socket more into your gameplay style, less of a requirement of you of saying, okay, I've got to do all these things. Our last thing for Scientists, though, is the conservation of energy. When you focus your efforts, you can reduce the power drain of every action that you take. Techniques only take effect when equipped. So this is a technique that'll give us a power usage of 3, 6, or 9. Damn, that bitch is fine. Reduction in power usage that you can have on your character. So for Explorer here, this is going to help us out when we're doing lots of traversal. So starting us off with that, we have Suspensor Pad. Drop a suspensor device that launches yourself and targets into the air. Useful for navigation and traversal. So this is basically a massive Z-axis boost. Cartographer helps us chart sync charts. We have Mountaineer, which helps climbing stamina drain reduction at max of minus 25%. The still suits seals. This helps out with the hydration capture. Still suits are basically what your character is going to use to maximize their hydration when they go into the deep desert. It's going to be a very big portion of that gameplay. Well, any kind of real sun exposure, I guess you could say. But that's a big portion of the deep desert. So this will be pretty crucial if you want to do lots of deep desert play, and there's lots of Z-access in the deep desert, hence climbing. Then the last one here is Scanner Master. You have become proficient with the hand scanner, which allows you to identify resource nodes, improving the range of detection, so 15, 20, 25% bonus there. Lastly, we have Explorer. Through research and field experience, you have learned to recognize the density of a spice bed from surveys. This ability is most used in the deep desert. So Explorer, like I said many times now, is definitely the deep desert focused specialization. So if that's what you purely want to do in the game or what your big focus is, this is going to be absolutely crucial for you. Our last one here, Mechanic, is going to be focused on all of just a lot of stuff with vehicles. So durability loss on vehicle components reduced, fuel usage reduced, mining yield. Applying your understanding of structural and mineral composition to heavier vehicle machinery results in larger resource yield. So this isn't just simply like, oh, I'm mining. It's using the vehicles to do so. Detection radius for the vehicle, sandcrawler yield, fuel usage reduction here, and then lastly, heat management. You can simply sense when and how to shift a vehicle to reduce heat buildup. activates when spice prescient. So this is our only prescience ability in the Planetologist. But Planetologist is not a class per se that you're going to start with, right? It's a class that we're all going to invest into in some way, shape, or form. But also maybe you play survival games, or because this is kind of like a survival MMO, right? It's got MMO light. You play survival games because you like being the builder, the crafter, the one that always kind of like maintains the house. That's going to be this class for you, right? You're going to focus on the scientist. Maybe you're going to be the mechanic. Like, hey, we need relief. Can you bring in the ornithopter? Can you bring the buggy out to us? Whatever it is, that's going to be a mechanic. So I think that those types of players, those types of characters are going to benefit from focusing on the Planetologist. But I see, like I said before, everyone's really going to have something to take from the specializations here. Moving into another starting class, though, we have the Swordmaster. I'm going to start with the Way, because the Way's first ability is the ability the Swordmaster starts with, not deflection. A lot of resources have shown deflection is what the game starts with Swordmaster. That is not the case. That is an older build of the game. Knee charge is what you start with, and it's really good, dude. You could like execute people from far away. You just come out of nowhere with a flying dragon knee and just take someone out, just straight up Steven Seagal style. So this thing is going to do 325 damage at most with 160 poise damage, and you just launch and do some damage. It's really cool. But then you get field medicine for heal kit instant restoration bonuses. You can see that there's a lot in the Way that a lot of people are going to benefit from if they want to go find the mentor to do it. Hydration stamina bonus, or hydrated stamina bonus, is really huge because, like I said before in the intro, Swordmaster is the king of stamina, which you will continue to see as we go through this. Stamina recovery rate up to 20%. We have inspiration. You inspire yourself and your companions to greater heights, increasing the damage of your melee attacks. Abilities must be equipped and activated from the bar. So this is really cool, right? So this is blade damage increase. But again, my typical way of trying to show you how these all bleed together, inspiration, think of this, I always like to play bard characters or characters that are some sort of support role. So inspiration works very well with this. Litany Against Fear. You can use these two in conjunction to give armor multiplier, reduce poise damage, and then blade damage bonuses. And then you can pull into stuff over here for more blade damage bonuses. So don't think, again, you're in one single silo playing one character. You can jump across to multiple things as long as you find the mentor and everything. So inspiration is a really cool ability. Then we have Crippling Strike. You move in, striking at a low angle to cut their enemies below the knees. While after being hit, your enemies are slowed. While not the most honorable attacks, the Swordmaster understands that there's a difference between a duel and a war. Ability must be equipped, blah, blah, blah. So this is going to basically make it so their dash cost multiplier goes up. They'll be less likely to evade away from you. So this will help out quite a bit, probably more in PvP than anything. General conditioning, again, more stamina. So we have stamina and we have stamina, all in these three right there. Then over here, dehydrated stamina limit. You have trained yourself to deal with the rigors of the deserts, decreasing your max stamina loss while dehydrated. So lots of stamina. Lastly, we have the Way, which is going to require, the last thing in the Way is Prescient Strike. When your blood is saturated enough in range, you can see multiple ways in which to damage your enemies. After using any Swordmaster ability, so anything that is these triangles, right? Most importantly, anything that is not just the Way's triangles, but over here, over here, over here. So just know those things, right? And this is a passive. This is a passive as well, and that is a technique. By the way, the whole technique, passive, and ability thing applies also to these skill capstone abilities. So your next strike will strike twice, reflecting two possible versions of the future converging into a single space-time. This says after using any Swordmaster ability, your next strike will strike twice. So you basically use the ability, right? And then it gives you a double to your Swordmaster strike. So I was going to say it'd be really cool to see how you could roll this with inspiration, but we'll have to play more around with Prescient Strike and how it can really play into things. But into the will here, we have deflection. A defensive stance here deflects darts that are fired at you. This ability lasts as long as your stamina holds out. And we've seen that you have plenty of stamina to take advantage of. Bleed tolerance helps out with, resisting bleeding. Then we get solid stance, reduce poise damage. And And then there it is, confidence. Every time you land a difficult attack like a sprint attack or a slow blade, you gain increased confidence, which reflects a damage mitigation. So the will is a lot of mitigation against your character, right? Range mitigation in deflection. You get kind of it's a pain in the ass to navigate around this because I've zoomed in so much. You get reckless lunge that helps out with your just straight up damage mitigation. You get your poise mitigation. So a lot of different mitigation comes into this, and it's really nice. And then solid stance here. As your training increases, you have learned to avoid being knocked around, so reduces poise damage as well. So all this is damage mitigation and poise damage mitigation. Lastly, we have thrive on danger. When you're low on health, you regenerate health faster, receive less poise damage, and reduce all stamina costs for actions. So this is pretty efficient here. And it's a 200% increased health regen and a 50% poise damage reduction, which is really, really, really nice. Our last one is the blade, which is going to give us that damage bonus to blades, of course, as a passive. Then we also get retaliate. When next attacks in melee, you parry and counterattack with a savage riposte that bleeds and damages your enemy. So you can see that's a pretty fun one we can use together. So you can see that all this stuff is really focused on one type of gameplay versus a lot of the other classes we've looked at have a lot of diversity in their trees. I think that if you want to play like a Bene Gesserit that focuses on blade, you're going to want to come into the Swordmaster. If you're playing a character that is not trying to do any real Swordmaster or melee combat stuff, you want to at least come into the Swordmaster and get some stamina things. So you can see that there's lots of stuff people can pull from this, but it's still a pretty singular facet, right? A singular way to play the game. Over here, we get Dance of Blades. Defeating an enemy with a blade empowers your next attack with the blade for a brief period. The skill Swordmaster dances between opponents, keeping their damage high. So a damage boost after you kill someone is pretty cool. Long blade damage increase here. It's the only long blade damage thing on the chart, I believe. Foil, you enter a heightened state of awareness, and when next attacked in melee, you parry and counterattack with a precise strike that damages their arm and numbs them. So you could have both of these on your bar if you want. They're both abilities. It just seems that they do the same but different, right? So this does bleed for 3. This does enemy damage minus 50%. So you could say, okay, I'm gonna swap out retaliate here in lieu for foil for reduced damage. Eye of the Storm, basically a whirlwind capability. While seemingly chaotic, the Swordmaster maintains calm. The Eye of the Storm. So this is going to do up to 140 damage at level 3, which should be pretty fun and pretty cool. Lastly, we have Precise Parry, another defensive characteristic, and this requires prescience here. When your blood is infused with melange, your parries expose additional weaknesses in the defense of your enemies. So you can really help with damage mitigation here, especially between these two capabilities and focusing on some of the damage mitigation from, like say, technique with Reckless Lunge, with foil, and with Precise Parry, right? You have lots of damage mitigation because this reduces enemy damage. Not outright damage mitigation, it's passive damage mitigation in the sense that you're reducing the amount of damage coming into you. So a lot of cool things here with the Swordmaster. If you want to play melee, it's going to be the way you want to go. But like I said before, even characters that are not going melee are going to want to borrow from the Swordmaster to help out all their stamina, because stamina is going to be a crucial part of this game. Last but definitely not least is the Trooper. And a Trooper, I think, is going to be another popular class. And I think it's good. We're going to have to see how melee combat feels once the game goes live. I'm assuming they're going to have tightened that up a little bit. Usually whenever you play those open beta weekends, you're playing a build of the game that's usually 6 months to 10 months old, because they have to stabilize it, build it within a silo, and then deploy it. Usually the game goes on with development and kind of tightens bolts here. So I think once we get a feel for how the game's melee is going to feel, we'll determine whether or not people go a lot onto Swordmaster, which is already pretty strong, but the parrying is kind of a little funky on Swordmaster versus Trooper and Mentat, which is very range focus. But the first one we're going to talk about is the tactical tech, because this wire claw is really good. It's basically just a wrist mounted grappling hook. You shoot it, you launch up. You've played video games where you've done this, right? This now it gets a further range though as you increase the points into it. And I think it's gonna be one of the biggest traversal things that almost everyone's gonna just at least put 1 point into. It's gonna be really cool, I think, and I think it's gonna be a big focus for every single class, especially as we're talking about moving into the deep desert. We're being able to grapple 1,800 whatever, meters, feet, whatever it's supposed to be, is going to be crucial in this game. But then we get into battle hardened, and this is going to reduce the cooldown on stuff. So you might as well take something like this. This is a technique, but using just one ability and one technique and getting those online so that our character can go ahead and have better ability cooldowns and have good traversal. This is just going to be two of the most used abilities and techniques in the game, in my opinion. But we also get an explosive grenade, which is a big boom. The Shockwave the Blast can still stagger a shielded enemy, which is really cool. And it also has the capability to penetrate shields. Then we also get Assault Seeker. So we saw the Hunter Seeker before. So the Assault Seeker is the same thing, but now it's a little bomb. Can be triggered to explode with a second activation, useful for situations where a thrown grenade is not precise enough. So you basically send a, what game has it? There's a game where you have like, I think it's Call of Duty actually, where you use it and it just sends like it is Call of Duty. It just sends basically a bomb, a little go-kart buggy just in a straight direction. Same thing here. And it blows up, but it's floating. It's not on the ground. A tractor field. This is a pretty cool one here. The tractor field uses a modified Holtzman field to draw attacks towards its center. Attach it to an enemy and shoot, and any shot fired into the field will redirect their center to their center of mass. It's really sick. I love that capability there, because we're going to focus on, in gunnery, hitting center mass. We'll talk about that in a second here. But lastly, we have the Prescience ability for reflexive reload, not to be confused with acid reflux. The actions you have performed 1,000 times become effortless. Whenever you throw a grenade or drop a mine, you instantly reload your current weapon. Your hands moving before your mind can even think. So this would be nice to basically use, rather than kind of saying, okay, I've thrown a mine, or I've thrown a grenade, or I used a mine. Oh, my weapon's reloaded. You would use those abilities to reload your weapon. Think of it that way, right? Rather than pressing R to reload or whatever it is to reload, you'd throw a grenade. Cool, my weapon's reloaded. So that's a really cool way to approach the game. Now, we'll talk about Suspensor a little bit, because it's going to be a big portion, I think, of using the claw here and whatnot. But gunnery is going to be huge for range damage bonus. Then we get this, so center of mass. So like the Mentat can increase headshot damage but decrease body damage. It's the opposite here. We're decreasing headshot damage by 15% at max and increasing body damage by 30%, which will then benefit from this attractor field, right? So everything's just going to go right to center mass. Then we can choose what kind of weapon we want to get bonuses to. Disruptor for our SMGs, scatter guns, or heavy weapons. So you can play along with any type of weapon that you want to use in this game. The GRDA-44 and Drillshot FK7 scatter guns. Then we have the Underslunk ability. You have trained yourself to move faster while using heavy weapons such as the flamethrower, lasgun, or Vulcan. So you have the penalty reduced on all those. Again, these all have disruptor damage, scattergun damage, the same percentages of 20% at max. But we then also get field maintenance. So you can clean your weaponry, slowing the durability cost of firing weapons, and you are skilled in the repair of weapons and tools. So the Mentat was repairing armor. The Trooper is repairing guns. So really awesome capabilities here for both of them. With our capstone ability, Energy Capsule, you pop an energy capsule, which fills you with a concoction of neurostimulants and pain dampeners. You become detached, allowing better targeting and range damage, as well as reduced stamina cost when sprinting. So range damage increased by 50%, stamina cost is 15, and duration is 7 seconds. So we get that as an ability here for gunnery. Now our last one is the suspension training. The anti-gravity field is this abilities that you'll get here. So this device, when thrown, uses a modified secondary phase Holtzman field to negate the effect of gravity in a spherical area. You can use the sphere to lift enemies or prevent fall damage during traversal. So you can launch yourself with the claw here, right? With the grappling hook, and then throw an anti-gravity field to slow your descent, much like you can with that mine that we talked about, right? With the Mentat. It's Mentat, right? Yeah, it's Mentat. Oh, so many abilities. And then we can use a gravity field to amplify the effect of gravity in a spherical area. You can use a sphere to slow enemies or decrease the speed of projectiles. So you pretty much have the same thing that you had with the mines, only this time it is with your trooper abilities here. And if you heard a Discord beep, it was my side, not yours. Over here under Suspensor Dash, your training with suspensors allows you to manipulate your flow of movement. Press the dash button while suspended to perform a mid-air dash. So again, you can use all these things in conjunction to give yourself a little mid-air boost. And we get death from above while you're suspended in the air. Any attacks using weapons will have a damage bonus. So staying in the air and shooting at things is going to be really awesome for the trooper gameplay style. And we have collapse grenade. Those inside the sphere are drawn together and temporarily stunned. So we have up and down. We have gravity and anti-gravity grenade, right? Then we have the collapse grenade, which just brings it all to the center, which you can then throw your center mass grenade into, or a boom boom grenade with your explosive grenade. So you can play a lot with these grenades. And these grenades could be also the thing that reloads you. And then you just unload on things with flamethrowers or Vulcans or las guns, whatever it is, however you want to play. The Suspensor training, I think, is really going to add to it. Then lastly, we have Suspensor Blast, which is not a prescience ability here. You manipulate the suspensor field generated by your suspensor belt, forcing it to explode around you with extreme force, pushing enemies back and damaging them. You can hold the ability to increase the damage dealt and time the blast release. So you can basically just clear the way around you so you can do whatever you want. So do you want to play a character that's using, I'm saying the word jetpack because it's a suspensor, but a suspensor flying up shooting things? Do you want to just spray and pray? Do you want an SMG, scattergun, or heavy weapon things down? Trooper is going to be for you. But still, I think that most people will want to pull things from tactical tech, especially this right side, because I think it's going to be so much more applicable to every single character that's going to be playing in Dune Awakening. So at that, it brings our video here to a close. We've covered all 5 of the classes for the starting classes, and maybe now you have a better idea of which one of these classes you want to initially start with. Maybe you have a better idea now of which class you want to really kind of jump around to. I'm going to link you to openworldg.gg in the description below. Play around with this. Have fun with it. There's no real difference between starting any one class other than just unlocking that class from the start. So please have fun. Enjoy yourself. I didn't want you to get from this video that you have to play this way or that way. I wanted you to understand what tools you have at your disposal to play exactly how you want to play in this game. I think it's going to be really fun. I think a majority of people are probably going to stick more to the PvE, dabbling with PvP on little like fun expeditions here and there. Remember that PvP resets every 2 weeks. So it shouldn't be something that's so sweaty that you can't break into. But I say that now, but games always get sweaty, right? So let me know in the comment section below. How are you going to be approaching this game? Are you going to go to Planetologist as fast as you can to get all of this stuff because you like to build? Are you going to go into Mentat, get a couple things for your range stuff, and then maybe jump into Swordmaster to take advantage of all the stamina bonuses? Are you going to play Bene Gesserit and jump into as much of this as you can and then maybe go back into Swordmaster for more melee damage bonuses? There are so many ways that you can mix and match these. Each specialization leans into another specialization from another class, causing for a really cool Venn diagram of 5 classes that are available to us in Dune Awakening. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.